sounds like this is a story of just incredible medical abuse in the military. That's why we wanted to have Sean on the Alex Jones Show today. Sean, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show. Can you hear me, Sean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Yeah, I can see you. Welcome to the show. How are you feeling, man?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing just fantastic. I gave a brief introduction to your situation there, but tell us in your own words. We've got a couple minutes before the next break. Go ahead and run down what happened to you in your own words, please.
All right. Back in 2009, if you all remember that we had a little bit of an H1N1 scare, or an invented scare, I found out that the immunizations that they were handing out, that the military was handing out to us, was an experimental version. It wasn't the same version that the rest of the world was getting. U.S. military was the only people getting this experimental version. I decided at that point I wasn't going to give it to my soldiers. I wasn't going to take it myself.
And what was your position there? You were a U.S. Army medic, correct?
Yes, I was the cavalry troops senior medic.
And what group were you with? Where were you stationed?
I was stationed in Afghanistan at the time with the 10th Mountain Division.
Okay, all right. We're going to go to break. Your story, please continue with us on the other side of this break. We want to find out what happened to you, what you did about it, and what this means for all soldiers in the military today. Right here on the Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back with all that, much more. Here on the Alex Jones Show. Welcome back. Here we go. We're continuing with U.S. Army medic Sean Niemi. That's the right pronunciation. He joins us by Skype to tell us what happened to him in the military and his attempts to protect his body, his health, from the experimental vaccines that are being forced on soldiers every day, it seems. So go ahead, Sean. You were telling us where you were stationed. Please continue with your story.
Yes. As I said, in 2009, I was in Afghanistan, stationed there for a year deployment with the 10th Mountain Division. I refused to receive or give the H1N1 experimental vaccine at that time. It was received at the time with a little bit of distrust from my chain of command. But once I explained to them that it was an experimental version, I didn't feel safe giving it to soldiers when I didn't even have a pamphlet that normally comes with medications and immunizations. We had no literature
really
at all.
So they just said, here it is, take it, and we're not going to provide any information about it. Just trust us, basically. Is that what they said?
It was generic labels on the bottles. All it said was keep refrigerated, and this is the dosage.
Wow,
that's what we were told about it.
So what caused you to have red flags about it? Why would you even suspect the safety of it in the first place?
Well, part of the biggest reason that I questioned it to begin with was the fact that there was no literature. I'm kind of OCD about making sure that I read all the literature to all the medications that I'm supposed to give to my soldiers. When there was no literature brought with the vaccines, I requested from the Brigade Medical Services Office, hey, you guys forgot to send the literature with this. And they said, no, there isn't any. Just follow the directions on the labels that are on the bottles, and you'll be fine. So at that point, I decided that it was time to look a little deeper into things. Found out that there was actually 3 different batches, 3 different formulas of the H1N1 vaccines that were being mass-produced for human use. 2 of them were being distributed to civilians all over the world. The 3rd one was being distributed to U.S. military members only. That also raised a couple of red flags.
Yeah, the special soldier edition with no documentation. So let me ask you this. How many soldiers were you in charge of in terms of their medical care?
I don't remember the exact number. It was a little over 100 of the U.S. soldiers from my unit and a couple of other units that were co-located with us, and then approximately 250 Afghan national forces that we did different missions in conjunction with them.
Okay, and where did you receive your medical training, and can you describe it just briefly so everybody has a background of your medical background, so to speak?
Yeah. After basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, I went to AIT's Advanced Individual Training, which is medic school at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. Spent, I think it was about 4.5 to 5 months there, learning not only an EMT civilian side of emergency medicine, but also the Army side of tactical combat casualty care, which is a little more, I don't know what the exact word would be. It's a little more goal oriented in keeping people alive, not so much keeping them pretty.
Well, keeping them alive is a good thing, but then, so it sounds like with the vaccines, you were concerned about the implications of that experimental vaccine on the health of the people whose health you were, at least in part, responsible for. So when did you start getting resistance to this, and how did that emerge in your experience there? What happened to you? Because I saw at one point you were being threatened with even being fragged.
Correct.
Lead us to that point. What happened?
After that deployment was over, we got back to Fort Drum, New York, and started the reset for the next upcoming deployment, which was going to be about a year to a year and a half out. So we started train up, reset, getting new equipment, getting new soldiers. At that point, we have to go through a medical screening.
All right, Sean, I got to interrupt you. We got one more break right here and then a long segment on the other side of this. But I want to hear your story of how you got threatened with even being killed if you didn't go along with their vaccine agenda. That straight ahead. Stay with us right here on The Alex Jones Show. All right, we're back on The Alex Jones Show. Thank you for continuing with us. This was Mike Adams filling in. Today, we're continuing our interview with Jon Niemi, U.S. Army medic, who was just telling us what happened to him with the experimental military vaccines that he didn't want to give to his men because he thought, well, they might not be safe, and there was no literature that came with them. So sorry about the interruption there, Sean. Go right on ahead with relating your story. Please go ahead.
Yes. So like I was saying, part of the preparation for the next upcoming deployment was we would have to go and have our medical records screened, get whatever immunization shots, eye tests, dental screenings that's needed in order to go overseas. At that point, I decided, well, I'd already decided up until that point that I wasn't going to receive any more of the immunizations and vaccines. I talked with my wife, and we were in agreement that because of our religious convictions, that it wasn't right for us anymore for me to be receiving these. That at that point, I put in what's called a religious exemption request to basically get me an exemption from any and all vaccines, immunizations, prophylactic medications such as the malaria pills.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
I said yes, and now that's a normal accepted procedure in the military. So why wasn't that accepted in the chain of command? What happened there? Well,
part of the problem is that sort of an exemption is only approval denial up until company level commander. It doesn't have to go any higher than him. And my company level commander in a cavalry unit, it's called a troop. I don't think he liked me very much.
I have an affidavit here. Oh, I'm sorry, your voice cut out.
That's okay. I was just saying that there had been a history between him and myself during different training exercises and such. And I really don't think he liked me very much. So he had already made up his mind before he had looked into the regulations and whether or not I was even allowed to request such a thing. I'm pretty sure he already made up his mind that he was going to deny it and give me an order to go get shots.
So it sounds like this was a punitive, vengeful type of action targeted to you personally because of personal disagreements. Is that a fair characterization?
I would definitely say so, yes.
And then I have an affidavit here, sworn affidavit by a Sergeant Medic Team Leader, Anthony Comau, who supports your story and says that this captain began to refer to you as, quote, bacteria man, and said they want to throw you inside a wall locker and throw a hand grenade in with you.
Correct.
So that's a pretty serious accusation and a serious crime in the military, if true, indeed.
Yes. Even the act of stating anything about fratricide is actually a crime. It's against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So even if he didn't ever try to go through with any kind of a plan like that, just stating that he was thinking about it is actually a crime in the military.
Okay, wow. And so there were witnesses to this threat that, according to this paper, was made by Captain Rappoport. Is that the name?
Correct. Captain Rappoport, yes. Captain
Rappoport. And so what happened next? I mean, you're out of the military now, so how did you get out with an honorable discharge? What was the situation?
Well, right after he denied my request for religious exemption, he immediately gave me a direct order to go get all the vaccines and shots and so on and so forth that I needed for the upcoming deployment. I told him at that point, sir, with all due respect to your grade and position, I cannot in good conscience do that because it violates my religious beliefs. And at that point, he had one of the other NCOs in the medical platoon escort me to the readiness center, at which time I told the team leader there, I'm not getting the shots, go ahead and take me back.
Did they try to force the shots onto you at that point?
No, they, with the smaller women that are nurses at the readiness center, I don't think anybody was going to force me to do anything.
Okay. So you stood your ground and then what happened?
We get back to the unit area, and I'm informed at that moment that Captain Rappoport was going to be filing papers to request an Article 15. And what an Article 15 is, it's again another kind of punishment under Uniform Code of Military Justice, to where I could lose all the rank that I had gained, lose a large sum of money. I could be put onto restrictions, so on and so forth. There's a long list of possible punishments that go along with an Article 15 punishment. By
the way, give out your website for those who want to learn more about this after the show. What's the web address where people can hear or read about your experience?
Yeah, I have a blog. It's vaccinebattles.wordpress.com.
Okay, vaccinebattles.wordpress.com. That's a good name. So there, are you continuing to blog there and give updates to the developing elements of the story?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm husband and father, so
right.
Get a little busy. I'm getting ready to go to school next month too. So
all right. So section or Article 15, they tried to get you onto that. Did they succeed, or what happened?
The interesting thing about this is that under an Article 15 proceeding, I have the right to either accept the punishment from Article 15 or request court-martial, which is basically I go to court, tell the judge my side, possibly tell a jury of my peers, so to speak, my side of it, and we let the judge decide instead of letting the commander just go ahead and decide what he wants to do with me. So I obviously requested